Hey there, movie fans. Welcome to a brand new episode of Rank and File. I'm your host, Scott Movie Mantz. Every episode of Rank and File, I take a film series and I rank all the entries from worst to best. This one, I finally really did it. I'm going to rank all of the Planet of the Apes movies. I love Planet of the Apes, so this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's get right to it. With number 9 on the list, it is Planet of the Apes. But the 2001 version, directed by Tim Burton, came out on July 27th, 2001. The budget is $100 million. Domestic gross, $180 million. Worldwide gross was $362 million. And the Rotten Tomatoes score is only 44%. What a crushing disappointment this was. Such high hopes for a real big budget Planet of the Apes movie directed by a visionary like Tim Burton. Yet the movie feels aimless, it lacks focus, it doesn't know what it wants to say. I mean, the makeup and the visual effects are all really good, but it has a campy direction, and overall, it was just a real disappointing movie. And the end of the film, which was supposed to be this great plot twist, a great surprise ending, fell flat. I did not like this movie. Moving on to number 8 on the list, it is Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Director J. Lee Thompson. Release date was June 13th, 1973. Budget $1.7 million. That's it, $1.7 million. Domestic gross was $8.8 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 36%. The prospect of apes and humans living together was a really, really great idea. An idea that will be explored a whole lot better about 40 years later. But overall, Battle for the Planet of the Apes is weak, it's uninspired, it's very low budget shows, and it just ends on a whimper, not with a bang. Moving on to number 7 on the list, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Directed by Ted Post. Release date May 26, 1970. Budget $4.7 million. Domestic gross is $19 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 38%. Now, I have Beneath at number 7, but the truth is I really like Beneath the Planet of the Apes. It is a wild, far out, crazy movie, not nearly as good as the original film, which came out 2 years before, but it does work as an action movie, and it is really wild having the apes, and they're going to go after these mutant humans who live under the remains of New York City and worship a bomb. This movie does not have a very happy ending at all, but it is an unforgettable ending and really wild. You really think that the Planet of the Apes series was going to be done after just 2 movies, but lo and behold, they figured out a way to keep it going, which brings us to number 6 on the list, Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Directed by Don Taylor. Release date is May 21st, 1971. Budget $2.06 million. Domestic gross is $12 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 79%. And what could have been a really weak, low-budget film really was a very fun and very funny movie, and the apes travel back in time to modern times, quote unquote modern times, thereby creating the Planet of the Apes. But Kim Hunter and Roddy McDowell, Zira and Cornelius, they are seen as celebrities except by the government, who sees them as a threat. I think of Escape from the Planet of the Apes as the Star Trek 4 of the Apes series, because even people who didn't like the concept of the Planet of the Apes could still have fun with this movie. Cornelius and Zira are fish out of water, and they're really having fun being celebrities until it takes a very, very serious turn. And like all of the Apes movies from the original films, it does not have a happy ending. Moving on to number 5 on the list, that would be War for the Planet of the Apes. Directed by Matt Reeves. Release date July 14th, 2017. Budget $150 million. Now we're talking. Domestic gross is $147 million. Worldwide gross for War was $491 million. Rotten Tomatoes score 94%. The rebooted Apes trilogy is a near perfect trilogy, one of the greatest trilogies of all time. All three films are fantastic. They're all great. And I really had a hard time ranking these movies because they're all like equally good. Maybe one is better than the other two, and I'll get to that in a second. War for the Planet of the Apes, an excellent film. It's a battle of wits in this film between Caesar, played by, of course, Andy Serkis, and his captor, played by Woody Harrelson, who's terrific in this movie. But this is a smart and provocative and poignant film, gripping and intense. Again, all three of these rebooted Apes movies are incredible, including number 4 on the list, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Directed by Rupert Wyatt. Release date August 5th, 2011. Budget $93 million. Domestic gross $177 million. Worldwide gross $482 million. Rotten Tomatoes score 82%. I thought this movie was fantastic. And after the Tim Burton film from 2001 was such a disappointment, I thought, wait, they're gonna do another version of Planet of the Apes, but this time they're going to make the apes motion capture, performance capture using visual effects versus makeup. I just thought this was going to be a disaster, but it turns out it was an amazing surprise, a lot of fun. Takes place in modern times. A drug is used to give an ape intelligence, and that ape becomes Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, who is terrific. You know, if you think about it, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is a very loose update of the original film Conquest of the Planet of the Apes from the original series of films. You know, when the apes break out of the San Francisco Zoo, it is a rousing and exciting moment where you are rooting for the apes. The big battle scene that takes place on the Golden Gate Bridge is absolutely thrilling. But even though the apes emerge victorious, the movie has a bittersweet ending because you know what's going to happen. You know that the apes will rule, and then you know that humanity is doomed. And watching the ending credits of Rise of the Apes, in which a virus, a pandemic, is quickly spread across the world, watching this movie now really gives it a bigger sense of urgency and something that we can now all very, very much relate to. Number 3 on the list is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Matt Reeves. Release date is July 11th, 2014. Budget $235 million. Domestic gross $208 million. Worldwide gross $711 million, making it the highest grossing Apes movie worldwide ever. Rotten Tomatoes score is 91%. Now, I said it was really hard to rank these 3 Apes reboot films because they're all great, but I do give this movie the edge because it feels like the stakes are so high. This is a biblical film in which Caesar and Koba, played by Andy Serkis and Toby Kebbell, it feels like they're Jesus and Judas, or, you know, Cain and Abel. The visual effects are fantastic. It is a great action film. Most importantly, the character development in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is absolutely fantastic, and you really empathize with both sides. You empathize with the humans, and you empathize with the apes. Number 2, Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Directed by J. Lee Thompson. Release date June 14th, 1972. Budget $1.7 million. Domestic gross is $9 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 50%. Listen, I think of all the Apes sequels from the original series of films, Conquest is the one that has aged the best. It is the darkest and most violent of the sequels. It's also, well, it's about as subtle as a sledgehammer. But you see how the apes revolted against the humans to take over the planet, so it becomes a Planet of the Apes. Roddy McDowall is terrific as Caesar at the end of this movie is still shocking and disturbing by today's standards. Again, low-budget film, but they really figured out a way to make a great movie out of it. Let's face it, number 1 on the list, it has to be the original 1968 Planet of the Apes, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. Release date April 3rd, 1968. Budget $5.8 million. Domestic gross $33 million. Rotten Tomatoes score is 88%. this movie isn't just one of the best science fiction movies ever made, it's one of the greatest films ever made, period. The groundbreaking makeup, Oscar winner John Chambers got a special Oscar for it. The trailblazing score by Jerry Goldsmith. The brilliant, brilliant screenplay by Michael Wilson and Rod Serling. Yeah, that Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone. This is a movie about social upheaval then and now. Charlton Heston just terrific as Taylor, but nothing beats the end of this movie. One of the greatest endings to a movie ever. I don't care how many times you've seen it. The ending of this film, when Taylor realizes where he really is and where he's been the entire time, it is still shocking and incredible by today's standards. How would you rank the Planet of the Apes movies? Comment below. Let me know what you think. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Movie Mantz. Please share this video with everyone, especially movie fans and especially Planet of the Apes fans. And please subscribe to my channel. I really, really appreciate it. More great content coming. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for another episode of Rank and File. Until then, here's looking at you, kids.